Surfers Paradise, Australia is a land of incredible beauty. It's inhabited by strange creatures and stranger sports. The Australians know how to have fun. Today, it's the IndyCars Down Under in the Australian IndyCar Grand Prix. Last year, the Aussies cheered the start under a bright sun. But soon, a tropical storm sent fans running and cars spinning. When the skies cleared, the Penske team was at the front, Mears and Fittipaldi. Then Emo forced past. Fittipaldi hung on and took the win. It was also a win for the Chevy V Indy engine in its debut, and Penske cars running 1 and 2. Last season saw its share of ups and downs. Mario Andretti hit hard at Indy. Paul Tracy scored his first pole, then crashed at Road America. Even Mr. Dependable, Bobby Rahal, found the fence. But it was a year that could not stop Bobby and his new partner, Carl Hogan, as he took the PPG Cup and the IndyCar Championship. The third for Bobby, the first for his new team. There were plenty of surprises last year, too. Rick Mears walked away. From his first days behind a wheel, Rick was destined for greatness. Indy was his personal kingdom. But the joy turned in 1984 when Rick shattered his feet in an accident at San Air in Canada. The recovery was long and painful, but the rocket roared back to score a total of 4 Indy wins. Then last year, the fate struck again. This accident at Indy practice set Rick thinking. By the end of the year, he decided his driving was done, and the great champion announced it was over. He will stay with the team as a director. Michael Andretti has the reputation of a charger. His cars are either in front or failing. For Michael, there is no middle ground. Last year, he won the final race of the season, but lost the IndyCar Championship by 4 points. Now he is following his father's path to Europe in Formula One. At the same time, the reigning Formula One champion is now driving an IndyCar for Newman Haas Racing. Already, Nigel Mansell has unofficially shattered track records. But here he faces new challenges and new faces. The waiting is over. The IndyCar season is about to begin. Today, it's round number 1 of the PPG IndyCar World Series, the Australian IndyCar Grand Prix from Surfers Paradise. And Surfers is located on the east coast of Australia, right on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. And here at Surfers, it is Mansell Mania, as all over town, not only pictures of the IndyCars, but of the reigning Formula One champion driving in his first IndyCar race. Let's go down to Mansell's pit area and Gary Gerould.
Paul, without question, the interest that this man has triggered in his arrival now in IndyCar racing borders on the phenomenal. Never before in IndyCar history have so many press members been accredited for this race, with the exception, of course, of the Indy 500. And Nigel has responded brilliantly. He's been fast in practice. He set a track record. He starts from the pole. The question now, Nigel, as you take this step to becoming a full-fledged IndyCar driver, what concerns, what apprehensions?
I think the major concern at the moment is whether it's going to rain or not. And I just hope the car works as good as it did in the last 10 minutes of the warm-up this morning. But really now, just concentrating on the job in hand is the most important thing.
Have a good, safe day. Keep in mind, he is the first man in 37 years in IndyCar history that in his first start wins the pole position. Let's go back in the pack now and check in with our colleague Jack Arute.
Well, Gary, we're back here in 13th starting position with the PPG IndyCar champion from last year, Bobby Rahal. As you can see, what a marked contrast from the pit area or the starting area of Nigel Mansell. It's very lonely back here. Now, one of the things that's happened is Bobby Rahal and his team have elected to go with a controversial chassis. They took over the development of the Dan Halliday chassis that was originally known as a True Sports chassis. It's now called the Rahal Hogan chassis. And this is developmental chassis made in America, but they have not qualified well with it. In fact, they're also running with a Chevrolet C engine, one of the new Chevy engines. But for Bobby Rahal, it's pretty far back in the pack. What's going to have to happen for you to be in the hunt?
Past 12 other guys. We haven't quite gotten the handle on the car today, but you know, it's a long race, and fuel economy is going to be key. We're making it on that basis, so we're going to give it our best shot, see what happens.
One of the things that happened, Paul, is they only had 3 testing days in Sebring, Florida with this chassis and the Chevrolet C engine before coming to Australia. The word from Rahal and Hogan, though, is that the new chassis will debut sometime in July.
Those are just 2 of the great stories we have for you this year in the IndyCars. Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Page, and what a difference a week makes. Last week it was Atlanta, Georgia in blizzard conditions. Today it's beautiful weather, near 90 degrees at the end of summer in Surfers Paradise, Australia. This is the first IndyCar race of the season, and here at ABC Sports we'll follow right up through and beyond the Indianapolis 500. We have 9 IndyCar events on our schedule for this year. But what of this, the first event of the season? There are 800 accredited journalists here. Now, many of them are watching Nigel Mansell, but 800 is a larger figure than they have ever had at an IndyCar event, and second only to the Indianapolis 500, the world's largest single-day spectator sporting event. And there are a good many other stories that they will be covering as well. For example, Bobby Unser, Emerson Fittipaldi starts on the front row alongside of Mansell. He's the defending champion here.
He's Penske's lead driver. He's 47 years old, Paul, and he's probably in better physical shape and mental shape than any driver in the field. He can win as easy today as he did when he was in his 20s. He's definitely going to give him 110%.
Then in the second row, the young Chargers, starting with Robbie Gordon.
Robbie Gordon, here's a guy that was picked by Ford Motor Company, came just like Rick Mears right out of the dirt racing in the deserts, right into Indianapolis cars, and he's a guy that was picked by Michael Cranafus from Ford Motor Company to be their golden-haired angel, and the kid is flying.
Alongside is Paul Tracy, who is replacing the retired Rick Mears.
Yes, and because Rick retired to put him into the good number 2 slot, Penske's team, he's really good. Probably the quickest I've seen come along in a long time. He wrecked a lot last year. He's got to quit wrecking cars, but I think he will. Penske told him, pass 1 car at a time, not all in 1 turn. If he does that, he's going to be the hero this year.
The engines have been started and the field is already rolling, looking for a pace lap. Let's take a look at the starting grid. On the pole with a new track record is Nigel Mansell. He'll be taking the green on a rolling start today for the first time since his go-karting days 20 years ago. Alongside is Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending champion here. He won 4 times last year, all on road courses. In row 2, it's Paul Tracy, taking over as a Penske regular. And Robbie Gordon in a full season drive for owner A.J. Foyt, the only rookie to lead a lap last year. In row number 3 is Arie Luyendyk, who is trained as a road racer, but in the Indy cars, he's only won on ovals, including the Indy 500. Row 3, Mario Andretti outside. He is starting his 30th year in racing. He has 22 road course wins. In the 4th row, it's Scott Goodyear, last year's Michigan 500 winner, now with Ford Cosworth Power. And Raul Boesel, who's had his best IndyCar season last year. In row number 5, Jimmy Vasser, a sophomore driver, and veteran Scott Brayton alongside. The 6th row, Mark Smith, a very impressive IndyCar rookie graduate from the Indy Lights. And Teo Fabi, back after only 1 start in the past 2 years. In the 7th row, Bobby Rahal, the defending IndyCar champion. His worst start in over 2 years, and Al Unser Jr. In the 8th row, Roberto Guerrero and Eddie Cheever. Row 9, Robbie Buell, the Indy Lights champ, and Stefan Johansson. In row 10, Andre Kesa and Gary Brabham. The 11th row, Danny Sullivan and Ross Bentley. The 12th row, Andre Montremini and Hiro Matsushita. And in the 13th row, Buddy Lazier and rookie Marco Greco. In the race analysis, 65 laps, just over 181 miles. Fuel window coming about lap number 22. And the defending champion here, of course, is Emerson Fittipaldi. Take a look at the onboard cameras. Of course, the pole sitter, Nigel Mansell. You look over his shoulder right now as the field maneuvers around behind the pace cars here. We have 4 onboard cameras for you, with crystal clear pictures under these partly cloudy skies, though for the moment the sun shines down. Looking backwards from Nigel Mansell's car to Emerson Fittipaldi as he lines up. Now on board with Bobby Rahal, the defending IndyCar champion, well back in the field. Plenty of work to do for him today. 12 cars in front of him, looking backwards from Rahaal's car. And then there is Al Unser Jr. He was the pole sitter here last year. As they begin to pick the pace up, you can see how pretty it is here in Surfers Paradise. Danny Sullivan set to go. And we have the heart chart on Danny Sullivan. Right now, he's not ticking along quite as fast as we expected, just over 100 beats per minute. Hopefully, we'll get to see how it goes throughout the day for Danny Sullivan. So the field is nicely started, ready to go, still not aligned into their rows of two. Let's take a look now at what this course here at Surfers Paradise offers, Bobby Unser.
Yes, well, the Surfers track is a 2.8-mile track around two very long straightaways, a little bit over a mile each. The front straightaway, which is where the start-finish line is, Paul, is about a mile long. Gets up to about 185 to 190 miles an hour with two chicanes put into it to slow the cars down, because they would have run well over 200 miles an hour without it. At the end, two short straightaways, the back straightaway, real long again with two chicanes in it, little turns at the north end, and that's it for the whole turn.
All right, the field now still single file, as they should be set for green as they come away from the beach and off of the Esplanade. And that will turn them westbound for just a few moments, and then they will come back southbound on the Gold Coast Highway. A temporary circuit here, and those long straightaways coming off of very slow corners mean that they're burning fuel at an incredible rate. And fuel has been a question with all of the teams here thus far this weekend. Very shortly, they should come into their more traditional alignment. It's difficult to do on a temporary circuit like this. And Bobby, so much to look forward to as now the front row begins to assemble.
Yes, it certainly is. This turn where they're going through here is 290 degrees, one to the left, one to the right. This is up on the north end that I didn't quite cover too well. Look how they're all lined up really good, Paul.
All right, the field comes into alignment now. The first race of the IndyCar season is about to begin as Nigel Mansell leads the field off the corner. Jimmy Swintal, the flagman, his first time in that position. As he takes a look at the front row, it's nicely aligned. The green flag comes out. Emerson Fittipaldi moves to the front. Paul Tracy moves outside of Nigel Mansell, and the Penske cars pick up the lead. Very tight traffic, but everyone safely through there. Fittipaldi, then Tracy, then Mansell. Robbie Gordon sitting back in fourth place. Now Fittipaldi beginning to pull a bit on Paul Tracy as Robbie Gordon begins to attack at the back of Mansell's car. Robbie Gordon still trying on Mansell as he comes down inside, and Robbie Gordon forces his way past Mansell. Mansell has dropped from the pole back 3 positions. And that's Mario Andretti that's closing up on his teammate now. So as they turn onto the Esplanade, running alongside the coast here, now it is Mario Andretti that begins to challenge his own teammate.
Yeah, I think what happened at the start is Mansell has never done an IndyCar race before. He's not used to the driver's habits, Paul, and he just got left behind a little bit. Look at that. Robbie Gordon way out there, missed a turn a little bit.
And one car spinning as the 19 car, the Indy Lights champ, Robbie Buell. But he doesn't touch anything and gets going. Look at Emerson Fittipaldi as he lays down the black mark coming off of that corner. And Paul Tracy tries desperately to catch him.
The track has been run by other race cars for a little while here, so there's a different rubber compound on the track. Makes it slippery for a little while, but it'll get faster as we go on.
So the race is underway. The first race of the 1993 IndyCar season. And with some bit of a surprise, it is Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending champion, in front. Back at Surfers Paradise, the first race of the IndyCar season, Emerson Fittipaldi leads his teammate Paul Tracy. Robbie Gordon in third, Nigel Mansell fourth, Mario Andretti fifth. In 6th place is Arie Luyendyk, followed by Scott Goodyear, Raul Boesel, Scott Brayton, and Jimmy Vasser rounds out the top 10. Let's go pit side and Jack Arute.
Well, already Emerson Fittipaldi has had 2 problems today. In the warm-up period, he had a problem getting full boost out of the car. The Penske team solved that problem. Then when they got ready to bring the car to the grid, they tried to start it. They found a fuel leak. A leak underneath this small O-ring. They located it, they replaced the O-ring, they brought the car to the grid. But they are very concerned about fuel consumption. You said the window of opportunity here would be around lap 22. Not for the Penske team. They say they'll bring their cars in as early as lap 17. It seems the Chevrolet C engines swallow a lot of fuel. Let's check in with Gary Gerould.
Jack, over our shoulder, the colors distinctively A.J. Foyt. A.J. not here today, but the young man in his car, Robbie Gordon, at age 24, has made quite an impression already this weekend. He told us just before the start of this race he was going to ride for the first 50 laps, not challenge. Not so. We've already seen him move up a spot. He's 3rd. He's been all over the racetrack in practice and in qualifying, dirt track fashion. He should be very exciting to watch today. I hope A.J.'s heart is up to it wherever he's watching back in the States. Paul?
I tell you what, Robbie Gordon, there he is, number 14, as he has managed to get around Paul Tracy. In doing so, the first lap was turned at 95 miles an hour. By lap 2, Robbie Gordon was the fastest car on the race course at 97.4 miles an hour. And look at Tracy. As he comes off that corner, he kicks the back end.
You know, there's a lot of people are wondering, Robbie Gordon is in a 92 Lola, not a 93 like most of the other guys that are up in front. The guys that are looking forward to Phoenix and to Long Beach and to Indianapolis are wondering, are the 92 cars going to be faster than the 93?
Well, the car that Robbie Gordon is in right now came out of Chip Ganassi's team from last year. They sold it to him. And when I was over at their shop taking a look at the new Lolas for this year, a couple of the team members said, you know, I'm not so sure that Ford Cosworth Power in last year's Lola isn't the better combination. As there's a problem,
It's obviously
Jimmy
liquid.
Vasser, and it looks like also that Scott Goodyear is involved in that. So both of them in a spin, and the course is, whoa, tight move for Rahal and Guerrero as he comes through.
There's not enough room to turn the cars around between the cement pillars there, Paul, but what happened was there was a lot of liquids on the racetrack right there spilled by somebody, and as the guys were braking going in the turn, the cars would just spin like they were on water, and the guys couldn't see it.
You got a glimpse there of the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, as the yellow out in this area. This is where both Vasser and Goodyear got sideways. There from above, Vasser's obviously gotten restarted, but Goodyear is going to need some help to get going. There is Vasser when he loses it.
They just looked like they had nothing but rear brakes, but actually there's a lot of fluid on the road, and as soon as they hit the brakes, they just lock up and they just go into spinning. You didn't even see smoke coming off the tires.
Well, it was obvious, too, that Goodyear had lost it in front of Vasser. As now Robbie Gordon closes in behind the leader of the race, Emerson Fittipaldi. But at the same time, Nigel Mansell and Paul Tracy are going at it. One of the nice things about Australian races, the crowd at an Australian race is accustomed of walking from point to point. Roger Penske keeping track of his team. They'll watch at one corner for a while, and then the way they lay out the areas here, there's no restriction. You can go on to the next corner and watch for a while. It's really nice, and the crowd just keeps moving throughout the day.
Of course, in road course racing, that's what's really nice about it. You can, through the course of the entire race, you could actually see every place on the racetrack just by moving around.
Robbie Gordon smoked some tires there as he comes into the corner. Mansell playing it very careful, which at this point is very smart. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Penske continues to work very hard here, not for Rick Mears, who's retired, but now for Paul Tracy. Working on the radio, lap after lap, watching by way of Australian TV. He simply said to Paul several times, nice and easy, nice and easy. He's going to talk him through this race, and he hopes to a victory.
Well, thus far, that's been exactly the way Tracy's been playing it.
Another interesting thing about Roger Penske is contrary to what some people think, he never pressurizes or pressures his drivers. He always lets them go easier. He doesn't believe in having to get a driver to go faster. It's always slow down and be careful. But he likes to win.
He's always picked drivers that go faster on their own, doesn't he, though?
Yes, he does.
Still Fittipaldi in front. The driver is very cautious in this, the first race of the season. A track that can change very quickly. We are just on the edge of the tropics here, and so rain can happen at any time, though, as you can see from looking over Danny Sullivan's shoulder. Nice clear skies overhead. And there's the heart chart. Danny came up a bit to 131. Now, that's an update. The way the data is fed is in bursts, so you'll see wide changes, and that's just the way the data is updating on the heart chart. Danny Sullivan, let's see if he elevates as he comes around the safety car that comes out there. Danny Sullivan looking solid as he continues around this circuit, running in 15th position. At the front of the field, it remains Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending champion at Surfers. Surfers Paradise, watching Nigel Mansell, who just seconds ago, as Paul Tracy got wide on a corner, ducked under Tracy and picked up third place once again. No indication of what might have gone wrong on Tracy. Here it is, locking his brakes full on the inside line.
Yes, the left front was locking up, but he might have a serious problem, Paul. He wasn't really in the right place on the racetrack to be braking right then, so we'll have to watch and see if there's another problem.
Back to the front of the field, the number 4 car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Right behind him is Robbie Gordon in 14. And Paul Tracy very definitely with a problem as he's on pit road. Looks like he may have crushed something. We'll take a good look at this as he comes to a stop at the Penske pits.
You can look at the tires. They're not setting on the ground just exactly right, but he doesn't look to have any body panels or any wings or anything knocked off or bent up. But there's something serious because you can look and see the way the mechanics are moving slow. They've got something that's permanent and bad on the car.
Already they've removed the steering wheel. Jack Arute, can you give us an update?
Yes, I can, Paul. The report, and after inspecting it, they feel they've lost a half shaft. A half shaft has gone away for Paul Tracy, an early out for the Penske team.
Bobby Unser, half shaft, rear of the car, lays down the power. Is that a result of running over those curbs?
Absolutely, Paul. That's one of the biggest problems. These cars have limited slips in the rear end, so they're not locked all the time. But when they get them in the air, like you watch when they go through the little chicanes and they come back down on the ground with all the downforce from the wing, it really locks them. And it's really hard on the axles and the transmissions. And already this week, we've seen some transmission problems.
Very much a partisan crowd here in Australia for this man, Nigel Mansell. First time in the history that the reigning Formula One champion has left his own series and come over to join the Indy cars. He does seem to be enjoying it. What an easygoing, wonderful guy he has been, for having been just totally inundated with press and well-wishers and everything this week. He's just taken it so well. He's every inch a champion.
He certainly is, and I think one of the most interesting things is watching right now of how sure and how positive he is as he works the steering wheel. Paul, that guy doesn't work nearly as hard as a lot of the guys we see with in-car chems in there. He really knows where his car is going to be with the utmost confidence when he turns in through the turns.
Now watch him on this course on the onboard camera. Does that not remind you of Rick Mears? The same very gentle style, slight movement of the wheel.
It certainly does. Rick on an oval. Of course, Rick, before he got his feet all bent up, was just as good on a road circuit as he is on an oval, Paul.
Many people forget that. At one time, he was the winningest driver on road circuits at Indy cars.
They seem to forget rather quick sometimes.
So Nigel Mansell in pursuit of Robbie Gordon. And maybe now as he closes on Gordon, we can get an idea how the driver of that black number 14 car has been handling these chicanes. From time to time, it's been spectacular.
The hardest thing on Robbie Gordon will be that every time he looks in his mirror, Mansell's there, and he knows he's running against one of the very best in the world. And Robbie, there he is, going right by.
No quarter out of Mansell, and you could hear the bottom of the car drag as he moved underneath him. And Mansell picks up second place.
I just started to say that he knows when he looks in that mirror that Mansell is there, and Mansell is tough. But by the same token, Mansell went right on by. Gordon is going to get tired of this race because Robbie works a little bit harder than most of the guys do.
Yeah, but if Robbie would like to learn smoothness, now he's got an excellent opportunity.
The boy is quick. Time is going to help him, and following a guy like Mansell is definitely going to help him.
So a change in second place as Mansell now back up to second. Remember, he started on the pole. Here was the positioning as Mansell came in to pass. Darted well to the inside and started his braking maneuver very hard.
And you can even watch Robbie Gordon. He wasn't blocking him, but he was certainly getting as much in the way, being a gentleman about it as he could. And Mansell wasn't too sure whether he was going to go to the right or to the left for a little while there.
All of the television coverage here, by the way, comes from our colleagues from Channel 9 Australia. They have cameras on top of buildings and helicopters all over this circuit.
If you notice, as you watch Robbie Gordon come out of the turns, we were just looking there, how much smoother he is that he's following Mansell as opposed to when he was ahead of Mansell. He was jerking the car all around. It just shows you that your head has an awful lot to do with your driving and the pressure the other drivers can put on you.
You had a glimpse for a moment there of Mario Andretti as he came off the corner in 4th place, right behind Robbie Gordon. Boy, look at how much deflection there is in the suspension as they come over those bumps in the chicane.
Yes, that's those curves, and those curves look smooth to us, but they really aren't. The tires get airborne, and I'm sure that that's what broke the axle on Tracy's car.
Let's go back to the Penske pits. Jack?
Well, Paul, after a detailed inspection, here's what the Penske team has found out. It was not a half shaft. It was this part right here, the rear wishbone. So they've gone all the way back to their pit area. They've retrieved 2 replacement pieces. As you can see, the crew is working feverishly to replace those to put Paul Tracy back out in the race.
Still the same answer.
Oh, Al Unser Jr. in trouble. He wants him to get the rope hooked to his car and get him towed, get him back around. Look how precarious that position is.
Whatever happened, he lost his engine, and that's the reason he wants to get a tow or a push.
All right, see if we can take a look at this. This is on board with Little Al. He was coming alongside Scott Brayton. Now, more than just a spin, he got up into the curbs, though not up into the barrier. What do you think?
He wants to get started, but you can hear all the crunching, and he's probably got some alignment problems right now if he doesn't have anything broken, serious, Paul.
And it looks like the area he's in is a little bit off the course, so he should be safe. Yeah, there you can see. In fact, Scott Brayton obviously got into trouble in the same situation trying to get around Al. They're now trying to get Brayton's car restarted.
Out of sight of the camera, I think what really happened is they probably had just a little bit of touch in each other, and that got them both out of control.
So the yellow flag will fly in that corner only while they get both of those cars either out of the way or back into the fight. And Nigel Mansell, running in 2nd place, climbs over the curbs. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Stretch on the Esplanade here is the beautiful beach at Surfers Paradise, enjoyed by everyone here in the Indy cars on their trip to Australia. How'd you like to have that job? Little suntan oil machine. On the race course itself, it is Emerson Fittipaldi out in front, a slight edge over Nigel Mansell. Robbie Gordon is 3rd, Mario Andretti is 4th. Arie Luyendyk now rides in 5th position. In 6th, it's Eddie Cheever, followed by Teo Fabi. Bobby Rahal has moved up to 8th. Stefan Johansson is 9th. In 10th is Raul Boesel. 11th, Roberto Guerrero, followed by Danny Sullivan, Buddy Lazier, Gary Brabham, Jeff's brother, Hiro Matsushita, and then in 5th place, Marco Greco, followed by Robbie Buell and Jimmy Vasser. Those cars are all on the leader lap with the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. Further down in 19th place is Montermini, Scott Goodyear, Scott Brayton, Al Unser Jr., Mark Smith, and Ross Bentley. Here is the situation, Bobby. It looked like Scott Brayton may have tapped Little Al.
Well, I'm sure that that's what happened. We don't see it quite as plain as we'd like on it, but the two of them got together. It's very dozen, of course, went out of control going to that chicane. Scott has sat there an awful long time. Little Al, we heard it crunch when it hit the curbing, so that wasn't good.
Still at that corner, they're trying to get those cars restarted, cleared, and out of the way. I'd hate to be in Scott Goodyear or the Scott Brayton's cockpit right now.
Oh, man, he sees one of those cars coming down on him every time, but just a little bit further on Tracy a little bit.
And Al Unser Jr. does get it fired, and he rolls back into the action, but he's fallen several laps behind. He is in 22nd position. Let's get an update on the Gallus team in general from Gary Gerould.
Well, Rick Gallus just got the good news that Little Al is back under power, but there's further bad news. Danny Sullivan, his other driver, has a motor miss in the engine right now. His performance is definitely off. One other note from this end of the pit, no telemetry, no radio for Stefan Johansson. He's got one of the new Penske chassis. They've got mechanical gremlins, but he's still on the racetrack. Paul?
Well, if you're going to have something break, I think I'd rather it be the radio than almost anything else on the racetrack. car.
Yes, for sure.
Back riding with Mansell, he chases Fittipaldi. You were talking about Paul Tracy and the long repair they are doing on that car. And why are they even doing it, Bobby?
Well, number one, the rod that bent is similar to an axle problem. It comes from jumping over the curb like you can see the guys doing there. But the reason that Penske wants to get back in is he realizes that training his driver is just as important as trying to get the car working good. So his driver needs the time on the racetrack, and he needs it with other drivers under racing conditions.
Now let's watch this, because here now is where Fittipaldi, if he should have any advantage at all over Mansell, will have it. And that is when he closes on slower cars. Because Fittipaldi, for the most part, knows and has raced with all of these drivers, and Mansell is not. So Mansell, it would seem, would have to be more careful.
Well, he has been. We watched the start. He was more careful. We watch it right now. He's being very careful, but he's been moving up and getting more aggressive. And as the race goes on, he will do that some more. But I've been watching Emil coming off some of the turns. And he's been popping the rear end loose a little bit more. Mansell right now, to me, has been looking a little bit smoother.
Jimmy Vasser moves over and lets them through. Robbie Gordon is closing. Vasser, by the way, started this race with the third fastest Chevy in qualifying, behind only the Marlboro Penskes.
Now that little sachet you saw right there was Mansell and taking a run at Fittipaldi. He'll be attempting a pass before very long. Now watch how smooth that Mansell's car is sitting on the track. Doesn't jerk around as much as Emil's does. And another thing, when you see Mansell jumping the curbs, like watch going through this S, that was the wrong one there, but watch when he goes through them. He jumps the curb, but he doesn't get on the gas, so it doesn't hurt the axles and the transmission as much.
Down the pit straight. Still chasing Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon was able to get around the slower car of Jimmy Vasser and is now rejoined this pursuit. And as a matter of fact, as they have moved through traffic, it's begun to close the front end up a little bit, and they're in closer contact. Only fight in the field is right here at the front right now. Nothing has changed down through the order.
These straightaways are so long here, and there's so many of them, that when you run down the straightaways as close as Mansell is to Emil, he can really pick up a draft and do a little bit of slipstreaming there, Paul.
Mansell still in pursuit. Chevy Penske Power in front. Ford Cosworth and Alola in second place. Notice, too, yet another car off in that corner, but it didn't look to be part of the original incident. Still yellow flags flying on part of the course. Nigel Mansell thus far has been the quickest on the circuit at 100.5 miles an hour. Quickest car thus far. Let's go pit side again in Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, let's update you on several stories. First, Paul Tracy, the repairs have been completed. He will be going out shortly. Behind me is the telemetry that's being utilized by Arie Luyendyk's car. It went out at the drop of the green flag. It has only come back up and began to spew out numbers and information in the last 2 laps. That was leaving Luyendyk's crew flying blind. Further up pit road, Bobby Rahal reporting on the radio that Carl Hogan continues to tell him to conserve the brakes. They're a little concerned about the brakes and how much they'll have left for the end of the race.
So concerned, Bobby, about both fuel and brakes now.
Yes, brakes are always a problem. Here we have, again, a very fast racetrack, long straightaways, high speeds, hard braking at the end of those things. I watched yesterday in practice, probably half the teams were putting on bigger air scoops, the air that cools the brakes.
The scoop, you actually can see one there inside of Bobby Rahal's front wheel. Big open area, ducts the air onto the disc brake and hopefully helps with the cooling. Actually does a pretty good job of helping it.
Yes, it does, and they just have different sizes. Of course, the bigger the scoop, the slower it goes down the straightaway because it's pushing air. The smaller it is, the faster it goes.
Nothing changes at the front. The field runs static at the moment as Fittipaldi is still the leader of the race. The defending champion here scored the first victory for the Chevrolet B engine. And the beautiful beach at Surfers Paradise. Look at those waves rolling in. Some of them are remnants of Cyclone Roger, not named for Roger Penske, but Cyclone Roger that passed through here earlier in the week. At the front of the field, it is still Fittipaldi, followed by Mansell and Robbie Gordon. Wow.
Right now.
Whoa. And here comes Nigel Mansell as he comes inside of Fittipaldi. He used the advantage of a back marker that was sitting by the edge of the course. put himself into a great position and does what he does so incredibly well. Jumped on those brakes at the last second and got past Fittipaldi. And Robbie Gordon is now right there to challenge Fittipaldi as well.
You know, ironically, he didn't really want to do that to Emmo. He put Emmo in a very embarrassing position. Watch this. He comes in. He's got both front tires locked up as much as he can lock them up. He's embarrassed because he really did Emmo wrong, but he couldn't help it. Once he was committed, he had to continue on. The guy that was good and smart on that was Emmo, because he avoided an accident, Paul.
So you're saying that he did him wrong and that he really shouldn't have come in slapping inside like that?
That's right. He was out of control. Nigel was going in there out of control with his brakes locked up. No way to turn, no way to do anything. If Emmo would have kept going with his line, there obviously would have been a wreck.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun to watch. Spectacular piece of driving.
It certainly was. But
here's on board, and Mansell is so capable of driving inside somebody. Look at that.
see, he didn't want to do that. It's slippery in there. But once he was in there and committed, he'd been running in on Emmo like that and thought he could get by him, but Emmo probably went a little bit deeper. I think Emmo's had hot brakes and been easing off a little bit on them, Paul.
Smoke pouring off of Nigel Mansell's tires as he came off of that maneuver, though. How much damage may he have done?
Not very much on the front tires. If he'd locked up the rears, that's where all the weight is and the down pressure is, so the fronts wouldn't have hurt all that much.
Now back behind Fittipaldi, as you're looking back from Mansell's car, is Robbie Gordon in car number 14. And he is beginning to worry Fittipaldi.
Yes, now if you watch, Emmo slid back quite a ways here. Now, it's very possible that Emmo's not having good brakes, that he's having problems with them, because Mansell was really beating him into the turn before. Now Robbie's right on his bumper and going to see how bad his brakes are, if they are, because Robbie will do a pass just like Mansell did.
16 laps are complete at Surfers Paradise, the first race of the PPG IndyCar World Series. The window for fuel stops should open by lap 22, though the indication earlier was that the Penske team may even bring their cars in earlier. Certainly that would be true of Fittipaldi because Tracy is no longer a factor.
I don't think they're going to be able to make it to lap 22, Paul. And the reason is they have 3 warm-ups. It's a long ways around this track. They use a lot of fuel. I think the guy's going to have to come in around 19 laps.
The sky is clear. The sun is shining, as you can see there. What does that do to the fuel situation? Does a hotter day burn more fuel?
No, it really doesn't change it. They're all computerized, and the temperature isn't really changing. So if the sun comes out, what it's going to do is it'll slow the racetrack down because it beats on it and makes the rubber a little bit more slippery. Contrary to what people think, a dry, clean racetrack is the fastest. When it gets rubber on it and the sun hits it, it gets slippery.
Watching Nigel Mansell in front of the field. To look back to Fittipaldi, who has now begun to close in once again. He's just under a second behind. And Robbie Gordon watches. Now let's take a look at this. This is that pass. Now as they come around, did he pass under yellow?
No, he didn't, because it's only a turn yellow. He really got him in a good place, just under the cloak, I guess.
How do they do that rule then? I thought the minute they see the yellow flag that was it. He couldn't pass until he got beyond the incident.
No, it isn't when you see it, Paul. It's the turn on road circuits. It's yellow just in the turn that they're showing the yellow, or it could be yellows, plural, on down around the racetrack.
So Mansell taking advantage then of both the slower car and the yellow flag that was in front of him, but you say perfectly dead on legal.
I think he took the advantage at that particular time just because he couldn't avoid it. He had committed himself into that turn too deep. He had to go on by.
Update on a couple of drivers. Al Unser Jr. is now 3 laps behind the race, and Paul Tracy is back out on the track, but he is 9 laps behind the race itself. Still 16 cars running on the leader lap. Nigel Mansell, the leader, followed by Fittipaldi, Gordon, Mario Andretti, Arie Luyendyk. The only thing that has changed is at the front of the field.
Now, as you watch Nigel, he's leading the race. Emmo's right there behind. If you watch him going through the chicanes, the curbs again that we were talking about, he isn't jumping the curbs near as bad when he's leading the race as he was when he's following Emmo. Now, that's because the leading car.
Now the report is that Nigel Mansell will receive a stop-and-go penalty for passing under the yellow, Bobby.
Well, I was wrong about that. The yellow must have been waving where he saw it, or excuse me, where he was when he passed Emmo.
So Nigel Mansell, the leader of the race, should see Jim Swintel give him the black flag, indicating that he has to come in for a stop-and-go penalty, and that will give the race back to Emerson Fittipaldi.
It really hurts, especially on a road circuit, a stop-and-go penalty, because Emma will keep going as fast as he can go, and the stop-and-goes have to be under the green, not under the yellow.
But is that an example of the kind of learning curve that Mansell will face here in the IndyCars as he learns slightly different rules and different procedures?
Yes, it could be. You see where you see all the yellows right now, for example? That's what Mansell saw. Now, whenever he got to the turns where the yellows are, he's not allowed to pass. After you pass that waving yellow flag, there's no longer a waving yellow flag, then it's okay to pass and race again.
Now we come to the situation where he rolls into the pits. Gary Gerould waits for him. Gary?
We wait with the team, Paul. He comes gliding in. It won't be just a stop and go. It'll be a stop and fuel and tires. They were within 3 laps of their designated first stop. They've decided that they'll make that stop and go ahead and change everything. Now, I don't think this is going to hurt them. They should be in the window still for a 2-stop race. He's off the Jackson flying. We've got him just under 16 seconds.
Mansell back into the action on lap number 19. 65 laps the scheduled distance, and as Gary Gerould pointed out, based on the tactics a little early there, cold tires coming out really got on the brakes hard.
Yeah, he's got to adjust his brake bias just a little bit. Again, this is his first race. I'm not making excuses for him, but he's got an awful lot to learn. And I think he's done awfully good by sitting on the pole today. But we watch him as he goes along, learn a bunch.
So at the front of the field, the situation changes again. Fittipaldi is in front. Robbie Gordon has begun to close up. That's Gary Brabham that sits behind him. He has been lapped in the field, but he certainly is a favorite of this Australian crowd. By the way, not his first time in an IndyCar. He had a test in the Porsche IndyCar at the Nürburgring a couple of years ago. So here is Fittipaldi out in front of the field, lap number 19. He should be due into the pits at any time, as should Robbie Gordon. Mario Andretti is now the big hope for his team as he sits in 3rd place. Arie Luyendyk is 4th, and with that stop, Mansell 5th. The leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, roars toward the Penske pits for his first stop. Here's Jack Arute.
Emerson Fittipaldi getting the service from the Roger Penske team. They are going to change all 4 tires. They're going to take on fuel, and they're also going to remove some debris from the left front wing. Waiting for a full load of fuel. No major changes. And Fittipaldi is down and away. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Robbie Gordon just left, 15.3 on his stop. No chassis changes, just tires and fuel. Paul?
Robbie Gordon coming out right behind Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi on these terribly hard tires here. In fact, most of the drivers, most notably, though, Mansell, has had trouble adjusting to the tires here. There is Mansell, though, sitting up at speed as he comes around Gordon and gets in behind Fittipaldi again. Mansell has been on the fly. Remember, his tires are up to full temperature.
Yes, that's right, Paul. I was just going to bring that up. His stop-and-go penalty didn't make any difference because he did a pit stop within about a lap, maybe 2 laps when Emmo did it. And when Emmo came back out, Mansell's tires were hot, and look what he did. Right on by.
Mansell, just while the pit stops were going on, he came out in 5th place behind Luyendyk, and he was able to get around Luyendyk very quickly, and now cutting his way up through the field. Marco Greco had a problem earlier. He was sitting nose on into the tire barrier. It looks like the tires caught the car, though, and no damage nor injury. In fact, he might even be able to get restarted.
Racing tires are thermostatic. I want to explain that just a little bit. When they're cold, they don't grip as well normally. Sometimes you get tires that do, like rain tires, are good when they're cold. But these type of tires that are smooth and no tread in them, most often don't get good adhesion until they really get worked up good. And early in the race, when you see the guys warm up, they're whipping back and forth. They're trying to work that rubber to get it hot.
Here is Mario Andretti in for his first stop of the race. He's had a clean run to this point and has been in contest at the front of the field the full way. Tires changed, methanol fuel going into the tank. Car looks clean and good. And finally, Mario is waved away. So Mario comes back into the fight, falters just a little bit. Finally, the engine catches, and Mario in this curved pits alongside the Pacific Coast, or the Gold Coast Highway. It's part of the racetrack. And Mansell now running alone in the lead of the race with Fittipaldi. in second place. Let's go to Jack.
Arie Luyendyk getting his first service of the afternoon, taking on 4 tires. The crew has gone to work very quickly. You'll notice that the longest period of time is involved in taking on a full load of fuel. They want to make absolutely certain, all the drivers, that they get a full load.
Luyendyk came into the pits in 5th place, as now the fuel window open for everybody, and most of the teams have already completed their first stops of the day, though Eddie Cheever has managed to carry his number 69 car well beyond everyone else and has yet to make a stop, as does Hiro Matsushita. They'll be both due in the pit shortly. And with the exception of Gary Brabham, everybody else in and out. And with those pit stops, Nigel Mansell moves back to the front of the field, now being chased by Fittipaldi and Gordon. There's Fittipaldi, Gordon just behind him.
Yes, and again, I just want to explain that on Mansell's penalty, the stop-and-go penalty for passing Embo under the yellow flag, didn't really hurt him. He was able to come back and gain that because he did his pit stop, and he pitted at lap 19, where Embo pitted on lap 21. So it really came out even, not a penalty, but he's leading, and that's the reason he's leading the race again.
Mansell in front, back on the pit straight once again. Mansell looking very strong here today. Starting on the pole, dropping back to 4th place, and then moving back to the front of the field. So Nigel Mansell leads this field to the joy of the crowd. On a global scale, Mansell is one of the best known and best paid athletes. In England, he's the national hero. Last fall, his decision to leave Formula One shocked and surprised everyone.
Due to circumstances beyond my control, I have decided to retire from Formula One at the end of this season.
You see the face on the TV screen, coming at you every Sunday. See the face on the billboard, well, that man is me. On the cover of the magazine, there's no question why I'm smiling. You buy a piece of paradise, you buy a piece of me.
There's a lot of things that is totally new to me, although I've been a race car driver for all my life. And I'll be real happy if I can equip myself well. And obviously it'd be super if I could win some races. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the championship takes care of itself. I mean, any driver who actually accumulates enough points through the year will win the championship. And I don't even think about that, and I won't.
Nigel appears to enjoy driving a car that requires more driving skill with less technology. But even more than that, with his wife Roseanne and his family, he already fits into the more casual life of the IndyCars as compared with the tension-filled world of Formula One. And he had a great time at SeaWorld just up the road here from Surfers. So at the front of the field, it's Mansell, followed by Fittipaldi and Gordon. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Australia, you've seen him at the Indy 500. That is the Marion County Sheriff's Office motorcycle drill team from Indianapolis, Indiana. Sheriff Joe McAtee brought the whole group over and their motorcycles. And they put on a great show, putting on a terrific showdown, too. On the circuit, you caught a glimpse there of Roberto Guerrero. You're back at the front of the field now. Nigel Mansell has a 3.5-second lead over second place Emerson Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon sits in third. In 4th place, Mario Andretti, followed by Arie Luyendyk, Teo Fabi in 6th, then Eddie Cheever, then Bobby Rahal finally moving up, but he continues to work on Eddie Cheever a bit. Raul Boesel is 9th. In 10th is Roberto Guerrero. Buddy Lazier is 11th. Hiro Matsushita is 12th. In 13th is Stefan Johansson. Gary Brabham is 14th. 15th is Scott Goodyear. In 16th is Danny Sullivan, followed by Al Unser Jr., Scott Brayton, Ross Bentley, and Marco Greco. Paul Tracy is 21st, Robbie Buell 22nd, Mark Smith 23rd, and Jimmy Vasser is 24th. Let's go pit side. There's a question about how you actually enforce some of these stop-and-go rules, and maybe Jack Arute can get an update for us.
Paul, I've caught up with IndyCar official Billy Camphausen. And Billy, can you give us the official position on the stop-and-go penalty for Nigel Mansell?
Nigel received a stop-and-go penalty for passing under a yellow condition somewhere on the racetrack. He was called on a black flag and brought in. We assess the penalty by a stop and go, and during that stop and go penalty, he can do anything under a normal pit stop condition.
So it's well within the rules for a team to decide to take advantage of the stop and go and change tires, add fuel, and make it longer.
It is purely up to them.
Paul?
Well, of course, the penalty in that case, not that severe, though it may show up at the end of the race because it did get him in just a little bit earlier. And here on this long circuit at 2.795 miles, where that pit stop come could make a world of difference at the end. Danny Sullivan running 16th. Take a look at his heart rate. Little data update. Sometimes you'll get a glitch from the telemetry coming from the car, but he's just sitting right there in the mid 130s, low 140s. Channel 9 Australia supplying this heart chart to us.
You know, Paul, for ages, that's been just about typical of the way race drivers are. They don't really change much during the time of the race. Even when they get tired, they stay about the same.
Yeah, but if there's the ongoing question about race driver as an athlete, there's the evidence right there. Here's a fellow who sits the entire race at a very, very high heart rate. Robbie Gordon, third place, car number 14, driving for A.J. Foyt. Under the watchful eye of Ford executive Michael Kranifus, who has really helped this driver come along.
The 92 Lola chassis, last year's chassis. Paul, you know, it's possible that's still going to be a good car in Indianapolis this year, the 92 compared to the 93.
Well, how many changes did really occur other than the lengthening of the car for safety between in the Lolas, between last year's car and this year's car, Bob?
Well, every year there's changes made, aerodynamic changes that makes the cars faster, little tweaking on the suspension, things that just, if you add up 10/10, you get a whole. And so the new cars, all during the testing, said they were faster. But I'm beginning to wonder when I look at that 92 car.
But right now, on the 93 cars, the upgrades are very minute. Back with Mansell at the front of the field. Let's go to the Pennzoil pits. Teo Fabi is the driver there, and get an update from Gary Gerald.
I'll tell you what, Paul, I've been very impressed with Teo and his return now to IndyCar racing on a full-time basis for the Hall VDS team. He started 12th. This morning in the warm-up, they had the motor shut down at the end of the session. They had to trace an electronics gremlin, found some faulty wiring, got it corrected. He has worked his way up to 6th. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, but he is slowly working his way up through the field. One other footnote, Eddie Cheever, who stretched his pit stop further than anybody else, had to make an adjustment to his lap belts. They became partially unfastened. He got them back in the proper spot during his stop. He's running behind Fabi in 7th place.
So Fabi runs in 6th, Eddie Cheever in 7th. This is the driver in 8th place, Bobby Rahal. That is Cheever just ahead of him. And they have been going at one another rather constantly on the course for the last several laps. Remember that this race car that Bobby Rahal is in is the True Sports car of previous years. He's hired Don Halliday as here comes Mansell into the pits, and this is totally unscheduled. Nigel Mansell comes into the pits. It was only 10 laps ago that he was there, Gary.
Only 10 laps ago, they've changed the rubber. We don't know why. It caught us by surprise. He now spins away. I don't know if he suspected a tire going down or what, but totally a surprising stop for Mansell.
And of course, in doing that, he relinquished the lead of the race. Fittipaldi has taken it over. Mansell came out of the pits in 4th place and now has the job once again of having to work his way back up through the field. But twice already today, he's proven very capable of that.
The most likely thing on that has to be that he thought he had a flat tire, punctured tire going down, but we sure didn't see anything. He was leading it when he came in, and it was a normal stop.
He comes out on cold tires, which means that both Scott Goodyear and Mark Smith behind him will be in a little better condition to corner, and Scott Goodyear moved around Mark Smith when he slowed down there. Of course, Goodyear is well up in the order ahead of Smith. Goodyear currently running in 15th and Smith in 22nd. And now Nigel Mansell coming back up to full speed as his tires begin to heat up and allow him to brake a little bit harder.
Now you watch Scott Goodyear pulling up, trying to get around Mansell. He's actually faster. He just was in the wrong place to brake and get into the turn first. But both of those now are 93 Lolas with Ford engines in them, so you can see how close they are.
Well, look at Scott Goodyear as he swings back and forth, looking at a place to take a shot at Mansell and move forward. Goodyear's not had a great run to this point because he does sit back in 15th. got involved a little bit earlier on, but Goodyear is another one of these drivers that is a charger in this year. Had a great season last year. Remember his second place finish at Indy and his win at the Michigan 500. You can expect a lot out of Scott Goodyear and Derek Walker's team this year.
He's a lot like Rick Mears. He comes on stronger at the last ball than he does on early.
Well, there is Mark Smith, the 25 car. Let's go down to the pits. Gary Gerald maybe can give us an update on the Mansell pit stop.
Paul, it was exactly as we suspected. He thought that he'd had a puncture. Remember, about 6-7 years ago, he lost a world championship in the final race in Australia when a tire went away. This time, the tire apparently wasn't going away. He suspected it. That's why he came to the pits and got fresh rubber back out there. Could prove to be a very costly stop. It's now a 3-stop race for Nigel Mansell.
Again, that learning curve that Nigel is so very much aware of as he gets all the small sensitivities that the cars will show him, and as he learns these cars, much of that can only be learned when you're wheel-to-wheel in competition. Fittipaldi is in front, Gordon second, Mario Andretti third. Great time swimming with the Dolphins here. Look at this. Little Al out there. Wow, what fun at SeaWorld, not far from here. There's Shelley. And when I said the whole family, yeah, I'm sorry to report, would you do that to your pet dolphin? Let Bobby Unser on? I don't think so. Al Unser Jr., not his greatest of days, running 17th right now behind his teammate Danny Sullivan, while the leader of the race, Emerson Fittipaldi, is leading Robbie Gordon by 2.9 seconds. Let's get an update on this Gallus team. Go to the pits and Gary.
Well, here's Rick Gallus. And Rick, that unfortunate incident puts little Al way back. You're running in 17th. So what is your plan now for the rest of the event?
Well, I think my plan is just to go home after this race, Gary. We've had a horrible time, and just hadn't really been our weekend. We've struggled and everything, but the team's kind of hung in there, and we thought we had a good run with Al. And I really don't know what happened out there, but unfortunately we lost 4 laps, and right now we're just gonna do the best we can and try to finish.
Well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks at Phoenix, that's for sure.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
All right, thank you, Rick. Now let's go further up pit road. Here's one of the real fascinating stories of this weekend, and Jack Arute has the details.
Gary, right behind me, Buddy Lazier is undergoing his second stop of the afternoon. Lazier is very thankful that he's in the race because, come here, look at this. This is the nose, all that's left of it, that he had on the front of the car when it crashed yesterday in practice. Now, you might say, no big deal, you can just replace it. Well, the problem was they were in such a rush to secure sponsorship, they built up a show car and used their last nose on the show car, came to Australia only with the nose on the car. So here's what they had to do. They located a nose in Las Vegas, Nevada, late yesterday afternoon. They took a friend who lived in Las Vegas. He picked up the nose from a collector. He carried it in his hands by air to Los Angeles, California. They then tried to put it on a United Airlines flight. Unfortunately, the flight had already departed for Sydney. The people at United Airlines called Qantas. Qantas said, well, mate, our flight hasn't left yet. They rushed the nose over there from United. They literally took the brand new nose, put it in coach, I hope, strapped it in a seat, and flew it over here to Sydney. From Sydney, it made its way to the airport here in Gold Coast, and then a helicopter was dispatched, and the nose was delivered at 9:30 this morning, attached to the car just in time for Buddy Lazier to take advantage of the final practice before the start of this race. I guess you could say that Lazier is in this race with a little help from his friends.
Buddy Lazier currently running in 12th place, so it was most certainly worth it to get that car into the action here today.
Besides the cost of the nose, think what it's worth today, Paul.
I'll tell you what, just a coach ticket over here can be something pretty expensive. Ask Jack Arute. He ran up a whale of a bill trying to get out of Atlanta. You know, we went through the Atlanta airport, which you did not last week, right in the middle of that blizzard. And there were, what, several thousand people sleeping overnight in the airport. I can't tell you how happy we were when we touched down in Sydney, Australia. At the front of the field, it is this car. Emerson Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon runs in second place. Mario Andretti is third, but Nigel Mansell has been on a charge after his problems. Remember, he has one pit stop that came early that included a stop-and-go penalty. And then while in the lead, he thought that he had a tire going down, pitted, made a stop, took on new tires. It turned out that there wasn't a problem at all. And so Mansell is now closing up here, as you can see, on Mario Andretti. He's been whittling off of Andretti's position steadily for the last 5 or 6 laps. and now he has Andretti in his sights.
Well, you know, they're not bad rivals. They're good friends. They'll be good teammates through the whole year. But to Mansell, he's used to winning races just like Mario. He's going to pass him anytime and wherever he can do it. So we ought to see a good one here.
So the two Kmart cars in battle. And there they come, and here comes Mansell looking for any opportunity. Bobby, it amazes me how deep into the corner he can drive those cars.
Yeah, some people have a knack for doing that. I've always told you Little Al does also. But if you notice when Mansell brakes going into the turns, he gets offline just a little bit. I think what he's searching for is a little bit drier pavement, Paul. And there he is jumping the curbs again like he did when he's following him a little while ago.
And here you can see, too, that Andretti has obviously been in contact. His right front nose wing is gone. How much of a disadvantage does that put Andretti?
Well, on the slow turns, it won't hurt him at all. But on the fast turns, obviously, it's going to make a difference. Even going through the chicane, which are down to 60 miles an hour, entering them, it's going to hurt, and leaving, it's going to hurt.
And that sort of thing is a consequence of these very long, very fast straightaways going into very slow corners.
And so the people know it's really easy to knock a wing off. Mario could have just barely touched another car while he's trying to pass him, and it just breaks like glass, and away they go. In the old days, they were made out of aluminum, and they would bend a lot. Today, they're carbon fiber, and they just break.
So Mansell, behind the man who's helped him so much in the practice and the testing sessions for the Indy cars. Now he has another world champion, Mario Andretti, just in front of him and has his target set on him. So did Mario Andretti show him every trick of the Indy cars?
I don't think Mario will ever do that, Paul. Mario's been around a long time.
So Mansell and Andretti in the battle right now. Another Andretti missing from the IndyCar ranks over the winner. Michael took a further step to follow his father. He joined the powerful McLaren Formula One team. After extensive testing, he faced his first challenge on the starting grid at South Africa last week. A respectable qualifying was ruined by a balky clutch. As the rest of the field roared away, Michael was stalled. 4 laps later, a crash cut off a wheel and ended his day. The former IndyCar champion's dreams of a great start in F1 were over in a few short minutes. But Michael's momentary anger usually converts to stronger determination. Here in Australia, the race was watched by 2 world champions, Nigel Mansell and his teammate, Michael's dad.
Well, I just really felt for him. Obviously, I'm sure he was hoping for better, but it's just one of those things, and you almost have to be tough enough to put it behind you and look forward to the next race. And he can hardly wait for Brazil now, because as I said, he was hoping for at least a full race under his belt, which could have been very, very meaningful.
And those 2 guys who were sitting on the couch as such friends just a week ago, look at them now as Mario Andretti with Nigel Mansell climbing all over him, and Mansell gets around Andretti, moving up into 3rd place as he does so. So a great battle there on this circuit at Surfers Paradise. That puts Fittipaldi still in front, being chased by Robbie Gordon. Nigel Mansell back up to 3rd, Mario Andretti 4th, and Arie Luyendyk sits in 5th. Dolphin friends, but we did get a chance to try this man-made lagoon with some scuba diving. It's just across the racetrack, across the Gold Coast Highway from the pits. What a great idea it is, too. Man-made lagoon. It's called Reefscape. At the track itself, Robbie Gordon right now runs in 2nd place. He is a full 3 seconds behind this man, Emerson Fittipaldi. But the fastest lap of the race was just turned in by Nigel Mansell, running in 3rd place, a full 13 seconds behind this man, Robbie Gordon.
And Robbie Gordon, right then, the black number 14 cars had it said pit on the board. Come in. So he should be coming in real soon now, Paul.
Robbie Gordon, in fact, should come in at the end of this lap. The question is Fittipaldi as he comes onto the pit road as well. So 1st and probably 2nd place. We'll watch for Robbie Gordon as well, as the A.J. Foyt crew is out for him. The Penske crew is out for Fittipaldi. There's Rick Reineman. There is also the Robbie Gordon car. Routine stops for both. Rick Reineman, the chief on this car, as he gets the right side, right front change. Now the fuel rolls into the car. And already Fittipaldi is away. Robbie Gordon really wanted to get going. The stop has now gone long as the engine has stalled on his car. Finally, they get it going again. Robbie says, I'm ready, and they are back into the fight. Very costly stop, though, for Robbie Gordon.
You have to wonder why he didn't take off. I saw one of the card officials down there, and maybe there was something he was holding him up for, Paul.
So Robbie Gordon dropped back into 4th place. That brought Mansell up into 2nd, and Andretti, Mario Andretti, up into 3rd. But of course, both Mansell and Andretti have to make a stop.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is lap 44. We're showing Mansell is probably going to have to stop around 52 because he should have an extra stop because he came in with a flat tire, what he thought was a flat tire.
Yeah, it's only been 14 laps since his last stop. As Fittipaldi now comes up to full speed, that's Teo Fabi right there alongside of him. The Marlboro number 4, that's Fittipaldi. And Fabi, of course, is on nice warm tires that are sticking real well, and Fittipaldi still has to bring his up to temperature.
It takes about 2 laps, excuse me, to get these tires back up to temperature. So the guys slide, and they know that. It's like driving on wet pavement for a little while.
Let's go to the pits now, Gary Gerould.
Update on the Gordon situation, a 24-second stop. As you called it, Paul, the motor died. He lost the clutch when he exited. His immediate concern on the radio, we don't have to make any more pit stops, do we? Because he no longer has a clutch.
Now what that means of no longer having a clutch is that the clutch is engaged. He can still get around the racetrack all right, Paul, but what it means is it doesn't work. The pedal, when he pushes it up and down, won't release it. But with these cars, because of the type of transmissions they have, you can shift without a clutch, both up and down.
In fact, they routinely do it just that way.
Well, a lot of them do. Some of them still have to heel and toe it because the old-fashioned way, but the new guys all shift without the clutches most of the time.
Boy, look at Eddie Cheever as he goes hopping across the gravel area at the chicane and picked up a couple positions.
It was a good gain. I bet it was an awful bumpy thing to him. Watch this here.
Just look at Cheever. He's in trouble with the rears braking pretty hard on him, and he just says, well, straight's probably pretty good.
Now that gravel pit was put there to slow the cars down, but I think it just vaulted him ahead of those 2 guys.
He got out ahead of Guerrero and Matsushita. In doing so, remember, Fittipaldi pulled the same stunt last year and won the race.
Now you got to wonder whether Guerrero saw that and said, hey, maybe that's a quicker way. I'll try it.
Emerson Fittipaldi running in 3rd place behind Mansell and Mario Andretti, who have yet to stop. Let's get an update from Jack Arute.
Paul, you're looking at all the methanol that's left in Emerson Fittipaldi's fuel tanks. It's less than a gallon of fuel. They wanted to take it all on board. They weren't able to get it all there. And when Roger Penske, who was behind me, checked with his crew, he asked, how are we on fuel? The answer was, we're on the ragged edge.
They would have liked to have gone another lap, but they probably didn't have it. A 2.7-mile circuit here, the fuel to get that far around. They're waiting for Mario Andretti down in the Kmart pits.
And then Roger Penske, here he comes. And what Mario's going to be thinking, or excuse me, Penske's going to be thinking about doing is, what do I do? It's going to be turn the boost down and short shift. That means a lot less RPM all the way around.
4-tire change for Mario Andretti on lap 45. He runs in 2nd place, but while he sits in the pits, Fittipaldi has already flashed past and put him down to 3rd place. Now here goes Mario. Back up to full speed. 4 new tires on the car and a full tank of fuel. 65 laps, the scheduled distance. That's 20 laps away for Mario.
Mario's still in pretty good position, Paul. One little tiny left front wing adjustment. Of course, he doesn't have a right front wing on the car, but a little adjustment to the wing, and away it goes, and he's in 3rd place. That's not bad right now.
That adjustment, is that most likely to balance the missing right front?
Yes, they keep screwing it up, keep turning it up a little higher to give it more downforce to make up for what isn't there on the other side.
5th place, Arie Luyendyk comes into the pits, makes his stop. He managed to go 24 laps since the last stop, so that'll give you an idea of how these cars are doing on fuel economy. Luyendyk, of course, a Ford-powered machine.
Some of the guys that are back a little ways, like Luyendyk, will often shift a little bit early. If they realize they can't lead the race, the best thing to do is to try to outsmart the guys on fuel or go a little bit longer in chance that they may find a yellow flag and be able to pit under yellow.
And with these stops, Nigel Mansell reassumes the lead of the race, but he still will most likely have to make a pit stop before the end of the run, the only car that is left to do so. In 2nd place is Emerson Fittipaldi, followed by Mario Andretti, then Robbie Gordon and Arie Luyendyk. 6th place, Bobby Rahal, Raul Boesel, Eddie Cheever, Teo Fabi, and Roberto Guerrero runs now in 10th place. So the battle continues at Surfers Paradise. And we'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
He has a great suites that they have pit side. You're able to invite all your friends like they've done here at IndyCar. But the most important thing is you're able to look out over pit road and see all of the exciting action. But most importantly, too, you can pick up a hat, put it on your head, and have a fair dinkin' day.
Jack, take the hat back off.
Yeah.
Your day isn't going that well.
I think he should.
Nigel Mansell leads this race. The question, of course, is when can he stop? He absolutely must stop before the end of the run. He's gone 19 laps since his last stop, but I would suspect, Gary Gerald, if you can join us, that the crew wants him to bring that tank in as dry as possible.
Absolutely the case, Paul. 29.3 gallons of fuel on the pit side of the wall. They'll try to get every bit of it into the car. We also are led to believe that he'll stay on the same set of tires. So it'll be fuel only, and then Mansell will have hot tires as he goes back onto the race course.
The Kmart Haviland Lola in the hands of Nigel Mansell with some critical decision-making to make. And Bobby Unser, once again, here is a car that in race conditions he's not that familiar with. Yes, he has the instrumentation, but there's also a feel that he may not be able to judge.
I know, but you know, Jim McGee down in the pits made a real good decision on that, or down in the pit stop for Nigel. Keep the same tires on, because we can all see how much problems they have on cold tires. He needs every little advantage he can get. So going back out on hard tire or hot tires, even though they're worn out a little bit, will definitely be a good move.
So the strategy being played so very carefully, trying to get Nigel Mansell a win in the IndyCars in his very first race. What a spectacular achievement that might be.
It certainly shows you that an entire team does it, not just the driver, because just making that one decision about leaving the tires on was really a good one made by the team.
Only driver to win in his rookie IndyCar event. You raced against him. Can you guess who it is?
No, I don't really
Graham
know.
Hill, the Indianapolis 500. Won in his rookie year at Indy.
That's right. I was there that year, Paul.
1966. Of course, part of that owing to that first lap accident that took most of the contenders out. Nigel Mansell has been in the fight this entire day, fallen backwards twice, and still comes back to the front of the field. He's now gone 20 laps since his last pit stop. Second place, let's run through the order for you. Fittipaldi. Third is Robbie Gordon. Mario Andretti is fourth. Ari Luyendyk is fifth. No changes there. Bobby Rahal has finally made his way up to sixth place, getting around to Eddie Cheever. Raul Boesel runs in eighth. In ninth is Teo Fabi. Roberto Guerrero in his full season ride for Kenny Bernstein and the Budweiser team, now in 10th place. Hiro Matsushita is 11th. Scott Goodyear is 12th. 13th is Stefan Johansson. In 14th is Gary Brabham. Danny Sullivan is 15th. His teammate Al Unser Jr. is 16th. Scott Brayton 17th. Ross Bentley in 18th. And Buddy Lazier, Mark Smith, Paul Tracy still in the fight. Marco Greco back in the action. And Robbie Buell running 23rd. Jimmy Vasser is 24th. There's Gary Brabham. They're keeping track of him, of course, local Australian. This may be, though, the only ride of the year for him. Very talented young driver.
It was interesting on Gary Brabham. A whole bunch of companies, or numerous companies from Australia, made it possible for him to be in the race. And he is really a good race driver, Paul.
Oh, he's excellent. The whole racing family. Sir Jack, the fellow who brought the rear engine car in modern times to the Indianapolis 500 and IndyCar racing.
Some of the hardest races I've ever had is against Jack Brabham. He was one stubborn, fast race driver.
And, of course, Jeff Brabham, great GTP champion. The front of the field, Mansell is unchallenged. He has a 33-second lead over second place Emerson Fittipaldi. You ride with Mansell now. We asked Nigel to differentiate driving this road circuit in an Indy car as compared to his experience in Formula One.
Well, there's a lot of differences. I mean, very quickly, it's a turbocharged engine as opposed to an aspirated engine, so there's a little bit of a lag for the power. The cars are significantly heavier, 500 pounds in point of fact. We have a normal gear shift, whereas the Formula One car is automatic. And then we have a pop-off valve as well that we have to regulate, and a whole host of other things. But basically, the driving style in the slow corners is similar, with the exception that with an IndyCar, because they're so much heavier, you have to be almost a little bit more precise, because if you miss the apex, you don't really get a second go at it, because the car is so much heavier, it's less responsive to change. Whereas a Formula One car is dancing all the time on the knife edge, and therefore if you actually miss the apex, you can maybe have 1 or 2 more goes at it. Otherwise, I'd say it's more or less identical.
And now Nigel Mansell on the pit road for what should be his last stop of the day. Gary Gerould is there.
Keep in mind, Paul, it is his 3rd stop. He had that unscheduled one. When he thought he had a puncture, he did not have a puncture. This time, they will not change tires. They're going to stay on the used tires, 29.3 gallons in. He's out of here in just under 9 seconds on our clock.
An incredibly fast stop as it's fuel only. They keep the old tires on, and Nigel Mansell heads for the end of the pits, looking for Fittipaldi, who runs in 2nd place behind Mansell. Mansell gets out clean thus far. Those tires fully heated up, paying off for him. And here comes Fittipaldi. So Nigel Mansell in and out of the pits, and maintains position in doing so. Fittipaldi came across the line 19 seconds behind. What a spectacular stop for Nigel Mansell.
It certainly was a fast one, but now we'll just have to see, did they get enough fuel in there? Did they get it all? That's what we'll have to find out now, Paul.
Well, Gary Gerould is down there, and he can check and see if all of the fuel came out of the tank. The best guess is that you would have to have drained that tank fully. Gary Gerould, what's the story?
Yeah, Paul, we're looking down at the tank, and we can see, I mean, in the hose, with the way they mark it, I believe about 1.5 gallons, close to 2 gallons left. So they didn't get it all. They got close to all of it. Will it be enough?
That's going to be the big question, because the best indication, certainly out of most of the cars here, was that you were going to need every drop of fuel allocated to make it to the end of the race. Nigel Mansell stopped and comes out 19 seconds ahead of Fittipaldi. Cyclone Roger left the area. It made a great day for the kiters. Look at this as it towed them down the beach. Little rough for surfing, though. The waves, at one point, they had a 43-foot wave just off in the Pacific. Here ashore, it's Nigel Mansell, 19 seconds ahead of 2nd place Emerson Fittipaldi. When you look back from the rear of his car, every time he glances down into his rearview mirrors, look at that. Empty track behind him, and he's burning up the record. The track record was 77 miles an hour. Nigel Mansell is averaging 97 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour faster at this point. But can he hold on to the end of the race? Let's check first in his pit with Gary Gerould.
Paul, the crew here says they're not concerned about the fact that there are 2 gallons of fuel left over there in the hose. They're wondering if the tires will be all right. We talked to one of the tire men. He said that should not be a problem at all. We'll take it nice and easy. They think they're going to be able to slide home with a win, and this storybook tale looks like it's going to reach heroic proportions for Nigel Mansell. Let's go further up pit road now to Jack Arute.
Gary, imagine the frustration with this team, the Roger Penske-led team, as they check their computer, the telemetry on board, reading out how many miles per gallon they're getting for their fuel. They literally don't have enough fuel on board to do any heavy racing. So they're going to have to maintain that 2nd position and wait for the green light, maybe in the last couple of laps, to put the hammer down, as they say, and try and chase down Mansell.
3rd place is Robbie Gordon, A.J. Foyt's number 14 car.
That was Paul Morgan standing right behind Jack Arute from Chevrolet Engines, a guy that one of the big designers of the Chevrolet engine, and I'm certain that he's worried about whether or not the Chevrolet's not going to get the proper amount of mileage. They have to get 1.8 miles per gallon, and I could just look at the frown on Paul's face. It looked bad.
Well, most of the engines weren't coming anywhere near that kind of mileage in any of the practice. You saw some seriously long faces in the Penske pit. Robbie Gordon solidly in 3rd, 20 seconds behind the leader, 24, and just 6 seconds behind Emerson Fittipaldi. So in those terms, maybe Robbie Gordon has a chance yet to catch Emmo.
You know, another interesting thing, a Chevrolet engine was thought about in June of last year, and they have 65 engines built already by now. But there really isn't any development time, whereas Ford has had a whole year on it, Paul.
You're talking about the Chevrolet, what they call the C engine, which was developed from the middle of last year, seeing its first race here today, as opposed to the Ford, which was merely an upgrade of last year.
Right.
Back in the field, the battle for 6th place involves Bobby Rahal, the defending IndyCar champion. You're on board with him now. And Eddie Cheever, who sits just behind him. These two have been at it constantly throughout the afternoon. And Eddie Cheever has really been smoking the tires trying to get around Rahal at every opportunity.
Bobby Rahal's True Sports car is not quite as fast as should be, but boy, he's been driving the heck out of it
Yeah,
today.
but they call it now the Rahal Hogan as we come on board with Al Unser Jr. And they say they're going to have a new version of that car out probably sometime late June, early July, not in time for the Indy 500. Al Unser Jr. as he moves inside of Scott Brayton. Scott Brayton was running just ahead of him for a bit, and now he puts Brayton down, and his next target is that car that you just saw of Gary Brabham. Nigel Mansell still out in front, but the lead changes only by a second, 18 seconds in front of Emerson Fittipaldi. There are now 7 laps to go, but long laps they are, 2.7 miles around this 16-turn course. Back on board with Danny Sullivan. Let's see how fast his heart is going. A heart-stopping drive for Danny.
I don't know what all those little lines mean. They have to get the numbers up there for me.
There you go. Got a flash at 171.
Well, that means he's probably getting a little bit tired. Of course, it's almost the end of the race, so he should be tired by now.
Danny Sullivan, not with his best of days, currently runs in 13th place. So he has gotten a little ahead of his teammate Al Unser Jr. Changing cars for that team this year, going over to Lola's, leaving the Galmer machine that won a couple of races for him last year, including the Indianapolis 500 for Little Al.
Look how smooth Nigel is right now. He's just smooth as silk. And the reason is he has nobody to race with him, as you said just a few minutes ago. Emerson has no fuel to race hard. He must go slow, so Nigel just going to coast and make sure he doesn't have any problems the rest of the way.
Nigel has dropped off his high-speed run considerably. His fastest lap was at 101. He's now turning laps at 97.1 miles an hour. That's a full mile an hour and a half slower than Emerson Fittipaldi. But that's a calculated run. This is an incredibly smart racing driver who now knows if he is to win, he must pace himself to the finish. So in first place, it's Nigel, followed by Fittipaldi, Robbie Gordon, Mario Andretti, and Arie Luyendyk. Australia, under bright blue skies and sunshine, Nigel Mansell may be on his way to a historic finish in the IndyCars. He's averaging 20 miles an hour faster than last year's lap record, but his lead over Emerson Fittipaldi is steadily being whittled away because now he must play a very tactical game, trying to stretch his fuel tank the remaining 3 laps to the end of this race. Fittipaldi is 15 seconds behind, but he is being attacked by Robbie Gordon. Now Gordon closed down to within attack distance, but then between Gordon and Fittipaldi lies Bobby Rahal with a battle of his own going with Eddie Cheever. That's a battle for 6th place. So Rahal wants to hold off Cheever if he can.
You know, Robbie Gordon, I've been watching, he hasn't been gaining. He hasn't been passing these other 2 cars. We know that Emil hasn't been using full power. He has no fuel. He short shifts, he turns his boost down. But watch Robbie Gordon at the top of the screen there. The black car in the last place right there. He's just not gaining, Paul.
But he's playing it very smart. He doesn't really want to get up into that other fight until he has to, but that time is coming very quickly.
He doesn't have much time left, and that's got a Ford engine in it. We think that the Fords are outdoing Chevrolet on the fuel mileage right now. So if Robbie was ever going to have the speed, now's the time to do it.
You know, that's the beauty of the first race of the season. All of these cars have been in testing all throughout the winter, and there's great press releases coming out on how really great they are and how they're doing. This is the first contact in anger, and where we find out where the truth really lies. Let's go down to the pits and Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, we've already talked about the fact that Robbie Gordon drives for the legendary A.J. Foyt, but if you talk to Robbie Gordon, you ask him who his boss is, he says Michael Krenefis from Ford Motor Company. You all know upstairs that that's one of the moves they started and transferred from Winston Cup competition here to IndyCar competition, where motor companies now take rising young stars and bring them along.
How lucky could a young man be to be picked up by a guy like Krenefis, a guy that heads all racing for Ford Motor Company?
So the fight continues for second place. Mansell is now only 12 seconds in front of Emerson Fittipaldi. The white flag should come out the next time by, indicating 1 lap to go as this battle continues on, rages on, in fact.
There's Emo, short shifting, cut back on fuel. Still way back, not any way in the world unless Mansell has problems and he can catch it. But look at the crew that he's holding up.
While we watch this battle, there goes Robbie Gordon making his move as he comes around Cheever, who slowed down just a bit.
Cheever smoked, Paul. Something happened to his car because Gordon got by as the smoke came out of Cheever.
So Robbie Gordon moves up, not yet a position. The world's best tennis players have battled all week in Key Biscayne, Florida. Now a winner's share of over $200,000 in one of the game's most coveted titles is up for grabs. It's the men's finals of the Lipton Championships. That's coming up next, right after the racing here on ABC Sports. Back at the front of the field, the white flag has come out for Nigel Mansell. But is there enough fuel here? Is there enough fuel in Fittipaldi's car? Fittipaldi is now just 9 seconds back. And Robbie Gordon sits almost behind Fittipaldi. He has only to handle up Bobby Rahal. So this race most certainly is not over yet.
You think strategies don't change at the very last of the race when there's no fuel left? Everybody is wondering. You know, they have all of their onboard computers, but they don't even believe those when it gets down this close.
A very partisan crowd here in Australia in favor of Nigel Mansell. They are going to go nuts. They did so when he scored his pole position. Now they have a new award for pole, $10,000 for pole. And if the pole winner can also win the race, it's another $15,000. So it's going to be a very lucrative day for Nige if he can only make it to the checkered flag.
Yes.
There's that battle going on still. Robbie Gordon has not made it around Rahal, though he tries him there.
Well, I don't think Robbie Gordon is really trying right now. He's just hanging on. He's going to settle for third place.
Would be a smart maneuver if he did so. But now Robbie Gordon is around Rahal. And now is trying to close and pass Fittipaldi. This is the battle on the field as Nigel Mansell continues his pursuit of the checkered flag and his first IndyCar victory.
Now, Emo's not going to just give up and let him pass. Emo will run it out of fuel before he'll let Gordon pass.
Watching for Nigel Mansell, looking for Jim Swintoll's checkered flag. And it will be a history-making event, too, as here he comes. Nigel Mansell has scored the victory in the Kmart Haviland Lola. Despite 2 different mistakes during the race, but let's listen to the car. Let's see if he has fuel all the way to the finish. Coming across in second, Emerson Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon third, Mario Andretti fourth. Does Nigel have any fuel left in that car? Can he go the remaining 2.7 to make it back to the winner's circle? Now, he's going to wave at the crowd, but I don't think he's got the fuel to make it. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
Paul, he says that on the radio that he ran out of fuel as he took the checkered, and we could hear the engine start to misfire, we believe, as he went by. I don't think he'll be able to get back around.
Boy, they better do a special compensation for whoever calculated the fuel load on that car.
And Jim
as
McGee,
Nigel Mansell rolls to a stop. But all you have to do is get across that line.
It shows you the pit crews don't always tell us the truth. They thought they had enough, or they knew that they had enough, but we outfigured them on that because we didn't think that they were going to be, we didn't really think he was going to have enough, did we?
Well, you didn't, but he made it. All you have to do is make it to the finish line. Nigel Mansell has done it. He makes history here today. The defending Formula One champion knows exactly what IndyCar racing is about and is showing this crowd and the world what he's made of. I hope that he has enjoyed it.
It's certainly
Carl Haas and everybody congratulating one another on a terrific victory and a very tactical win. His victory lap. Nigel Mansell hitches a ride with a safety truck and now is with our Jack Arute.
Nigel, congratulations.
Thank you. That's fantastic, and a great credit to the team.
What went through your mind when you had that tire that you thought was going down? He's getting the congratulations now, Carl Haas. Pretty evident that what went through your mind when you had the tire go down? You had to come in for the extra stop.
I was disappointed, but it was my own fault because I clipped the curb probably too hard and punctured it. But I was even lucky on the last set of tires. I hit the barrier real hard coming out of one of the chicanes with about 15 laps to go, and I mean the tires and wheels are real strong.
Concern about the fuel at the end. Describe it.
Oh boy, I mean I had to get 1.9 on the fuel meter for the last few laps, and I was just about doing it, but then coming out the fast chicane on the last lap, the engine started to quit. I just put it in fourth gear and prayed I could get around the next corners, and as you can see, I just got past the straight and it stopped completely at the end.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
On the way to victory, Mansell shattered the track record by nearly 20 miles an hour, averaging 97.2 miles an hour, followed by Fittipaldi, Robbie Gordon with a great run, Mario Andretti, and Arie Luyendyk. 18 of the cars that started this run finished the day. Bobby Rahal with a good run, battling with Eddie Cheever most of the way. And it just predicts what a tremendous year we're going to have in the Indy cars this season, 93. Now second place, Emerson Fittipaldi in a fuel battle of his own. And he is with our Gary Gerould.
Emerson, you come down the stretch trying to challenge. Did you have enough fuel that you could really race?
Well, I was very frustrated in the car that the pit, you know, Chuck was keeping me down, keep the revs down, and I want to race Nigel. I was just very frustrated the last 2 or 3 laps because I want to go for, but, you know, they asked me to save, and I was very close indeed.
Well, the defending champ has to settle for second today as we go to Jack Arute.
And he is getting the congratulations. Third place, Robbie Gordon. Terrific finish.
Yeah, you know, there at the beginning, I let Paul go. I let them go. Unfortunately, I had a good shot at Nigel, so I went for him. And then I figured we were running a little too hard there at the beginning, so I backed off, and I said I was going to let Nigel go back by. I let him right back by. And unfortunately, we lost a clutch at the last pit stop and, you know, couldn't get her going on the get-go, or we could have got Emma for second.
2 weeks from today, the Indy cars will be at Phoenix International Raceway for the Valvoline 200, the first oval race of the IndyCar season right here on ABC Sports. Well, Nigel Mansell makes history by being the first rookie ever to win from the pole. He is a champion by every definition of the word, and we hope that he enjoys his year in the IndyCar as much as we're going to enjoy watching him. It was a great race, and it just predicts an incredible IndyCar season. So from the land down under at Surfers Paradise and its soft sandy beach, this is Paul Page for Bobby Unser, Gary Gerould, and Jack Arute. We'll see you in 2 weeks at Phoenix.